I was 22, 8 weeks pregnant, and my boss just fired me in the middle of a lunch rush because I threw up in the kitchen trash can. So, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease, the kind of smell that clings to your clothes no matter how many times you wash them. I'd been working there for 3 years, ever since I started community college. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent. Or at least it used to. "Emma, you're done," my manager, Derek, said, not even looking up from his clipboard. "I can't have you getting sick around the food. Health code violation." I wiped my mouth with a paper towel, still shaking. "Derek, please, I said you're done. Clock out." The other waitresses pretended not to hear. They kept moving, filling coffee cups, shouting orders to the kitchen. I'd worked alongside these women for years, and not one of them met my eyes. I untied my apron with trembling fingers and walked out the back door into the September heat. The alley behind the diner was narrow, wedged between two brick buildings, and the sun had turned it into an oven. I leaned against the wall and let myself cry for exactly 2 minutes, because that's all I could afford. Then, I pulled out my phone and checked my bank account. $347. Rent was due in 6 days, $850. I'd been taking online classes at night, working toward a business degree that felt more and more like a fantasy with every passing semester. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19, and I'd been on my own ever since. No siblings, no aunts or uncles who gave a damn, just me. And now, apparently, a baby. I walked the 12 blocks back to my apartment because I couldn't afford the bus. It was a studio on the 4th floor of a building that should have been condemned 20 years ago. The elevator never worked. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's television through the plaster. But it was mine. I climbed the stairs slowly, my hand on the railing, already exhausted. When I reached my floor, I saw something that made me stop. A man in a charcoal suit was standing outside my door. Not just any man. The kind of man who looked like he'd walked out of a magazine spread. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and intense eyes. His suit probably cost more than I made in 3 months. "Can I help you?" I asked, suddenly very aware of how I looked. Stained uniform, frizzy ponytail, red eyes from crying. He turned, and for a second, something flashed across his face. Recognition? Surprise? It was gone before I could place it. "Emma Hart? Who's asking?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "My name is Julian Ashford. I'm here about your father." "My father?" I took the card without looking at it. "My father's been dead for 3 years." "I know," Julian said quietly. "That's why I'm here." I stared at him, my heart hammering. "I don't understand." "Can we talk inside?" Every instinct I had screamed not to let the stranger into my apartment, but there was something in his expression, something that looked almost like guilt. I unlocked the door. My studio was exactly what you'd expect. A twin bed in one corner, a kitchenette that was basically a hot plate in a mini fridge, a desk piled with textbooks. One window overlooked the parking lot. Julian stood in the middle of the room, and suddenly the space felt even smaller. "What about my father?" I asked, crossing my arms. He didn't sit, didn't make himself comfortable. He just looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. "Your father and my father were business partners. 20 years ago, they started a tech company together. It was small at first, just the two of them working out of a garage. But they had an idea for a software platform that ended up being worth considerably more than either of them anticipated." I shook my head. "My dad was a mechanic. Before that," Julian said. "Before you were born." I sat down on the edge of my bed because my legs suddenly felt weak. "I don't understand what this has to do with me." Julian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. My father bought your father out of the company when you were 2 years old. He paid him a settlement, and they signed a non-disclosure agreement. Your father agreed never to speak about the company or his involvement in it. Why would he do that? Because my father gave him a choice. Julian's jaw tightened. Either take the money and walk away, or face a protracted legal battle over the intellectual property rights. My father had better lawyers, more resources. Your father had a young daughter and a wife to support. The room felt like it was tilting. How much did he get paid? $250,000. It was a lot of money. It should have been enough to change our lives, but I remembered growing up in a small rental house. My parents always worried about bills, my mom clipping coupons from the Sunday paper. What happened to the money? I whispered. Julian looked away. I don't know. That's not why I'm here. Then why are you here? He reached into his jacket again, pulled out an envelope. My father died 4 months ago. While going through his estate, I found documentation about the original partnership. I also found this. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten, dated 6 months before my parents died. To whom it may concern. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. I want my daughter, Emma, to know the truth. The company I helped build, Ashford Technologies, is worth billions now. I was there at the beginning. I wrote half the original code, and I was pushed out for pennies on the dollar. I signed the NDA, I took the money. I thought I was doing the right thing for my family. But Charles Ashford built an empire on my work, and I got nothing. Emma deserves to know. She deserves more than what I could give her. David Hart. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the letter. Your father stole from mine, I said, my voice breaking. That's what you're here to tell me. No, Julian's voice was sharp. My father stole from yours. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. The company is worth $8 billion now, Julian said quietly. I'm the CEO. And I think your father was right. You deserve more. I don't want your money. It's not my money to give. Legally, the NDA is binding, but morally, he paused. I've been thinking about this for 4 months, about what my father did, about what I'm responsible for, even if I didn't know about it at the time. What are you saying? Julian sat down on the desk chair finally and leaned forward. I'm saying I want to make this right. I can't undo the past, but I can try to give you the opportunities your father should have had. I don't need charity. It's not charity. He met my eyes. I'm offering you a job. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. I just got fired from a diner. What kind of job could I possibly do for you? You're studying business, aren't you? Marketing concentration? I froze. How do you know that? I looked into you, Julian admitted. After I found the letter, I wanted to know what kind of person David Hart's daughter had become. It should have creeped me out. Maybe it did, but I was too exhausted, too overwhelmed to process it properly. I don't understand. Julian stood up. Come work for me at Ashford Technologies. I'll cover your tuition, pay you a real salary, give you real experience. Not out of guilt, but because I think you might actually be good at it. And because it's what your father would have wanted. I'm pregnant. The words fell out of my mouth before I could stop them. Julian went very still. Okay. The father, he's not in the picture. He's never going to be in the picture. Okay, Julian said again, quieter this time. So you're going to rescind the offer now, right? I could hear the bitterness in my own voice. Because I'm going to be a single mom with no degree and no prospects. Julian looked at me for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. It was small, almost sad, but genuine. Emma, he said, the offer stands, all of it. And if you need maternity leave, health insurance, childcare support, we'll figure it out. I wanted to say no. I wanted to throw him out of my apartment and pretend this conversation never happened because it was too much, too strange, too good to be true. But I thought about the $347 in my bank account, about the rent I couldn't pay, about the baby growing inside me who deserved better than this. When do I start? I heard myself say. Monday, Julian said. If you're ready. After he left, I sat on my bed and stared at the business card in my hand. Julian Ashford, CEO, Ashford Technologies, and underneath, in smaller print, a phone number. I didn't know it yet, but calling that number would change everything. I just didn't know how much. Monday morning, I stood outside the Ashford Technologies building and seriously considered turning around. The building was downtown, 40 stories of glass and steel that reflected the morning sun like a beacon. I'd taken 2 buses to get there, leaving my apartment at 6:30 because I couldn't afford to be late. Not on my first day, maybe not ever. The lobby was all marble and chrome, with a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Young, beautiful people in expensive clothes moved through the space with the kind of confidence I'd never possessed in my life. I was wearing the only professional outfit I owned, black slacks from Target and a white button-up that was getting tight around my chest. My morning sickness had been brutal, and I'd thrown up twice before leaving the apartment. Can I help you? The receptionist looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Sleek, dark hair, perfect makeup, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm Emma Hart. I'm supposed to start today. She typed something into her computer and her eyebrows rose slightly. Oh, Mr. Ashford's personal project. The way she said it made my cheeks burn. Here's your badge. She slid a laminated card across the desk. 32nd floor, ask for Melissa Chen. The elevator ride up felt like it took an hour. My reflection in the polished doors showed a girl who looked terrified, and I couldn't even believe her. The 32nd floor was open concept, all glass walls and modern furniture. People worked at standing desks, spoke in low voices on phone calls, moved with purpose. I stood near the elevator, clutching my bag, trying not to look as lost as I felt. Emma? I turned to find a woman in her 40s, Asian, with short black hair and glasses, smiling at me warmly. I'm Melissa. I'm the head of marketing. Julian told me you'd be joining us. He did? Come on. I'll show you your desk. She led me through the maze of glass walls to a desk near the window. It had a new computer, a notebook, a mug that said Ashford Technologies on it. We're starting you in digital marketing. You'll be working on social media strategy, content creation, and analytics. I know you're still finishing your degree, so think of this as a paid internship that could turn into something more. Thank you, I managed. Melissa's expression softened. Julian doesn't usually take such a personal interest in new hires. You must have made an impression. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded. The first week was overwhelming. I'd gone from slinging hash browns to analyzing market trends, from living in survival mode to having health insurance and a salary that made me want to cry every time I looked at my bank account. But the strangest part was Julian. He was everywhere and nowhere. I'd see him in meetings through glass walls, always in a suit, always focused. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me from across the office, but the moment our eyes met, he'd look away. He never approached me directly, never asked how I was settling in. It was like he was keeping his distance on purpose. Until the second Friday. I was working late, trying to finish a content calendar that was due Monday. Most of the office had cleared out by 7. I didn't hear him approach until he spoke. You're still here? I jumped, nearly knocking over my coffee. Julian stood a few feet away, his tie loosened, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. I wanted to finish this, I said. He nodded slowly. How are you settling in? Good. Everyone's been really helpful. Good. An awkward silence stretched between us. Can I ask you something? I said, surprising myself. Of course. Why me? Really? You could have sent money anonymously, set up a trust fund, done a million things that didn't involve giving me a job. Julian was quiet for a moment. He walked over to the window, looking out at the city lights. When I was 16, my father and I had a fight. A big one. He wanted me to go to business school, follow in his footsteps. I wanted to study architecture, design buildings, create spaces where people could live and work and feel something. He smiled faintly. Obviously, he won. He always won. And I spent the next 15 years building his company, making him richer, living the life he wanted for me. When he died, I thought I'd feel free. Instead, I just felt hollow. He turned to look at me. Then I found that letter, and I realized my father had done this before, crushed someone else's dreams to build his empire, someone who just wanted to provide for his family. So, I'm your redemption arc? I said quietly. Maybe, he admitted. Is that selfish? Probably. He laughed, a real laugh, and the sound transformed his face. You're honest. I like that. I can't afford not to be. Something shifted in his expression. Emma, I know this situation is strange, and I know you probably don't trust me, but I meant what I said. I want to help. Not because I pity you, but because you deserve a chance. I'm pregnant, I said again, like I needed to remind myself. I know. And you don't think that's going to be a problem? Julian shook his head. My company has excellent parental leave policies, and if they're not good enough, I'll change them. I felt tears prick my eyes, and I looked away quickly. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. His voice was gentle. I want to. We were in his office going over a presentation I'd put together for a client pitch. The city sprawled out below us, a sea of lights. I know, Julian said. So why do you? He set down the papers and looked at me directly. Because no one took care of you before, and that's not right. The words hit me harder than they should have. I'd been taking care of myself for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone else notice when I was struggling. My father would have liked you, I said softly. Julian's expression changed, became almost vulnerable. You think so? Yeah, you're trying to be better than yours. I think he'd respect that. He didn't say anything, but I saw his throat move as he swallowed hard. That night, as I was packing up to leave, Melissa caught me by the elevator. Can I give you some advice? She asked. Sure. Be careful with Julian. I frowned. What do you mean? Melissa glanced around, then lowered her voice. He's a good man, one of the best bosses I've ever had. But he's also the CEO of a billion-dollar company, and you're in a vulnerable position. I'm not trying to take advantage. I know, that's not what I'm saying. Melissa's expression was kind but concerned. I'm saying people are going to talk. They already are, and I don't want you to get hurt. I rode the bus home feeling sick, and it had nothing to do with the pregnancy. She was right. Of course people were talking. I was the broke nobody who showed up out of nowhere and immediately got special treatment from the CEO. It didn't matter that there was nothing romantic happening between us. It didn't matter that Julian was just trying to right an old wrong. Perception was everything. When I got home, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note in Julian's handwriting. For the baby, get yourself something you need. Please don't argue with me about this. Jay. I sat on my bed and cried for the third time that week. Not because I was sad, but because I'd spent so long being alone that I'd forgotten what kindness felt like. And because I was starting to realize that the way I felt when Julian looked at me wasn't gratitude. It was something much more dangerous. The rumors started small, like they always do. Whispers in the break room that stopped when I walked in. Sideways glances from coworkers who used to smile at me. One of the junior analysts, a guy named Brad who had always been friendly, stopped responding to my emails. I tried to ignore it. I had work to do, a baby to prepare for, and a life that was finally starting to feel stable. But ignoring it didn't make it go away. It came to a head on a Tuesday in late November. I was 4 months pregnant, just starting to show in a way I couldn't hide anymore. I'd bought a few maternity clothes with the money Julian had given me, professional pieces that made me feel slightly less like an imposter. I was in the middle of a team meeting when I saw her, Victoria Brennan. She swept into the conference room like she owned it, which in a way she did. Victoria was the VP of Business Development, a former model who'd somehow transitioned into the tech world and climbed the ladder through sheer force of will and strategic marriages. She was 40, impossibly elegant, and according to office gossip, had been dating Julian on and off for the past 2 years. "Sorry, I'm late," Victoria said, not sounding sorry at all. Her eyes landed on me, traveled down to my slightly rounded stomach, and something flickered across her face. "I don't think we've met. I'm Victoria." "Emma," I said quietly. "I'm in digital marketing." "Oh, I know who you are. Julian's told me all about you." Melissa jumped in smoothly. "Emma's been doing excellent work on the social media campaign. Engagement is up 37% since she started." "How nice," Victoria said, still looking at me. "It's wonderful that Julian's mentoring program is working out so well." The meeting continued, but I couldn't concentrate. I felt Victoria's eyes on me the entire time, assessing, calculating. After the meeting, she cornered me by the coffee machine. "Walk with me," she said. It wasn't a request. We went to her office, which was on the 38th floor and had a view that made mine look like a closet. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "Let's be honest with each other," Victoria said, perching on the edge of her desk. "You're young, you're pregnant, and you're all alone. And suddenly Julian Ashford is playing knight in shining armor. That about right?" "It's not like that." "Really?" Victoria tilted her head. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like that. Julian doesn't usually make such personal investments in his employees." "There's history between our families," I said carefully. "His father and my father were business partners. He's just trying to make things right." "And you believe that?" I met her eyes. "Why wouldn't I?" Victoria laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, honey, Julian is brilliant at business. He's also brilliant at making people feel special. It's a gift. But here's what you need to understand. Whatever you think is happening between you two, it's temporary. Julian has obligations, expectations, a certain kind of life he's expected to lead." "I'm not trying to date him," I said, my face burning. "I'm just trying to do my job." "Good. Keep it that way." Victoria stood up, signaling the conversation was over. "Because if you think a billionaire CEO is going to throw his life away on a girl from a diner with someone else's baby, you're going to be very disappointed." I left her office shaking, not because she'd scared me, but because everything she said echoed the doubts I already had. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this looked like from the outside. I knew the gap between Julian's world and mine was unbridgeable. But that didn't stop my heart from racing every time he smiled at me. That night, I stayed late again, trying to lose myself in work. Around 8, Julian knocked on the glass wall near my desk. "You're here late." "I am too." "Fair point." He hesitated. "Have you eaten?" "Not yet." "Come on, I know a place." I should have said no. After my conversation with Victoria, I should have made an excuse and gone home. But I was tired of being alone, and Julian's presence had become something I looked forward to more than I wanted to admit. The place was a small Italian restaurant, tucked away on a side street with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Nothing fancy, but warm and real. "How did you find this place?" I asked as we sat down. "My mother used to bring me here when I was a kid, before she passed away. My father hated it, said it wasn't sophisticated enough, which is probably why I love it." We ordered pasta and bread, and for a while we just ate in comfortable silence. Then Julian said, "Victoria cornered you today." I looked up sharply. "How did you know?" "She has a tell. She gets territorial when she's threatened." "Threatened by what? I'm nobody." "That's not true." Julian set down his fork. "Emma, you're not nobody. And Victoria knows that people like you, honest, hardworking, genuine, are rare in my world. It scares her." "She said you two were dating." "Were," Julian confirmed. "Past tense. We ended things 6 months ago. She's not happy about it, but that's not your problem. She said I was a charity case, that you're just playing hero, and when you get bored, you'll move on. Julian's jaw tightened. Do you believe that? I wanted to say no, but I couldn't. I don't know what to believe, I admitted. This whole thing, it's surreal. 6 months ago, I was barely surviving. Now I'm working for a tech company making more money than I ever dreamed of, and the CEO is buying me pasta. It doesn't feel real.
It's real, Julian said firmly. Emma, I know this started because of guilt, because of what my father did. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. What do you mean? He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something that made my heart stutter. I mean,
It's real, Julian said firmly. Emma, I know this started because of guilt, because of what my father did. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. What do you mean? He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something that made my heart stutter. I mean, I like having you around. I like talking to you. I like that you're not impressed by my money or my title or any of the things that usually matter to people in my life. You see me as just a person. You are just a person. Not to most people. He paused. Emma, I'm not trying to complicate your life. I know you're pregnant. I know you have a lot on your plate. But I need you to know that this, he gestured between us, this isn't temporary for me, whatever this is. I felt tears burning in my eyes. Julian, I'm gonna be a single mother in 5 months. I'm broke, I'm still taking night classes, and I'm terrified every single day that I'm gonna mess this up. You could have anyone. Why would you want this? Because this is the first real thing I've had in years. His voice was raw. Emma, I've spent my entire life doing what other people expected. Building my father's company, dating the right people, saying the right things, and I'm so tired of it. When I'm with you, I don't have to be the CEO. I can just be Julian. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. I've never been good at trusting people. Then don't trust me yet, Julian said. Just give me a chance to earn it. The moment hung between us, fragile and terrifying. Then my phone rang. It was the landlord. My rent check had bounced. My face must have gone white because Julian immediately asked, "What's wrong?" "I have to go," I said, standing up abruptly. "I'm sorry, Emma, wait." But I was already grabbing my coat, my bag, mumbling apologies to the server as I rushed out. I couldn't let Julian see me fall apart. Not now, not when he was looking at me like I was something precious instead of the mess I actually was. I made it halfway down the block before the panic attack hit. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. I leaned against a building trying to remember the techniques my therapist had taught me back when I could still afford therapy. Then Julian was there, his hands on my shoulders, his voice steady and calm. "Breathe with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. I focused on his voice, on the rise and fall of his chest, and slowly, the world came back into focus. "I'm sorry," I gasped. "I'm sorry, I'm such a mess." "Stop apologizing." Julian's hands were still on my shoulders. "Talk to me. What happened?" "My rent check bounced. I don't understand how. I had the money. And then I remembered. The hospital bills for my first ultrasound. They'd been more than I expected, and I'd had to pay them right away. "I'll take care of it," Julian said immediately. No, I can't keep taking your money." "Emma, I'm not your charity project." The words came out louder than I intended. "I'm not some broken thing for you to fix. I need to be able to take care of myself, of my baby, and I can't do that if you keep swooping in and saving me." Julian stepped back, his expression carefully neutral. "You're right. I'm sorry." No, I'm sorry. I pressed my hands to my face. You've been nothing but kind to me, and I'm being ungrateful and... You're being human, Julian interrupted gently. Emma, I don't think you're a charity case. I don't think you're broken. I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. But that doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. I don't know how to do it any other way. Then let me teach you, he said. And standing there on that cold November street, with the city buzzing around us and my whole life feeling like it was balanced on a knife's edge, I made a choice. I reached out and took his hand. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Julian's fingers closed around mine, warm and steady. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I didn't feel alone.
The baby kicked for the first time in mid-December. I was at my desk, reviewing analytics reports, when I felt it. A flutter, so light I thought I'd imagined it. Then it came again, stronger. I pressed my hand to my stomach, and suddenly everything was real in a way it hadn't been before. There was a person in there, a whole person, depending on me. You okay? I looked up to find Julian standing nearby, concern etched on his face. The baby moved, I said, and I couldn't stop smiling. Something transformed in Julian's expression. Yeah? Yeah. First time. He looked like he wanted to say something, but before he could, Melissa appeared. Emma, do you have a minute? We need to talk about the Q1 campaign. Julian stepped back, his professional mask sliding into place. I'll let you work. But as he walked away, I caught the look on his face, and it was almost like longing. That night, I went shopping for baby supplies for the first time. It was overwhelming. Cribs and car seats and bottles and onesies and a million other things I didn't know I needed. I stood in the middle of a store, surrounded by young couples picking out nursery themes, and felt completely out of my depth. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian. How'd the meeting with Melissa go? I typed back. Good, she liked my ideas for the Instagram campaign. A pause, then, where are you now? I looked around at the baby store and made a decision. Drowning in baby products. Send help. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Send me your location. 20 minutes later, Julian walked into the store wearing jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. You came, I said, surprised. You called for help. He looked around at the overwhelming array of products. Where do we start? We spent 2 hours going through the store together. Julian was surprisingly knowledgeable, asking questions about safety ratings and making notes on his phone. When I tried to talk myself out of buying a more expensive car seat because of the cost, he quietly added it to the cart. Julian, it's safer. That's non-negotiable. At the register, I tried to pay, but he'd already handed over his credit card. You have to stop doing this, I said as we loaded bags into his car. He'd insisted on driving me home. Stop keeping you and your baby safe? Not gonna happen. I'm serious. People are already talking. If they find out you're buying baby supplies for me, let them talk. Julian closed the trunk and turned to face me. Emma, I don't care what people think. I care about you. The words hung in the cold December air between us. You can't say things like that, I said quietly. Why not? Because I'm starting to believe them, and that's dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Because you're you, and I'm me, and this, between us, this doesn't make sense. Any day now, you're going to wake up and realize you're a billionaire CEO, and I'm a pregnant college dropout who can barely pay her rent. And then what? Then nothing changes, Julian said firmly. Emma, I know you're scared. I know you have every reason not to trust this, but I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. I say it because I mean it. I've dated women my father approved of, women who looked perfect on paper, and none of them made me feel a fraction of what I feel when I'm with you. What do you feel? I whispered.
Like I can breathe, Julian said simply. Like I'm allowed to be imperfect. Like someone finally sees the person underneath all the expectations and actually likes what they find. I was crying now, couldn't help it. I'm a mess, Julian. I don't have my life together. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I, he admitted. But maybe we can figure it out together. He drove me home, helped me carry the bags up 4 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again. When we reached my apartment, he set everything down and just looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Okay." "The baby's father. Do you ever hear from him?" I shook my head. He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us. His exact words were, "I'm not ready to be a father," and then he blocked my number. Julian's expression hardened. "He's an idiot." "Maybe, but at least he was honest." I smiled sadly. "It's better than him sticking around out of obligation." "You deserve better than that. Better than him." I'm not sure what I deserve anymore. Julian stepped closer, so close I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You deserve someone who stays, someone who shows up, someone who thinks you and your baby are the best thing that ever." "Julian? I'm not saying it has to be me," he said quickly, "but I'm saying I want it to be, if you'll let me." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. "I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated. I feel lucky. Lucky that I'm pregnant with someone else's baby? Lucky that I get to be here," Julian said. "Lucky that I get to know you. And yes, lucky that I might get to be part of your baby's life, if you want that." I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Julian reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a tear from my cheek. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions tonight," he said softly. "I just needed you to know where I stand." After he left, I sat on my bed surrounded by baby supplies and cried until I had no tears left. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in my life, I was letting myself hope. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and doctor's appointments and moments with Julian that felt increasingly like something more than friendship. He came to my 20-week ultrasound without me asking, held my hand while we watched the grainy black and white image of a baby doing somersaults. "Do you want to know the gender?" the technician asked. I looked at Julian. He squeezed my hand. "Yes," I said. "It's a girl." I saw tears in Julian's eyes before he looked away. Christmas came. I'd been planning to spend it alone, but Julian showed up at my apartment Christmas morning with coffee and pastries. "I know you probably have family stuff," I started. "I don't," he said quietly. "My father's gone, my mother's gone. It's just me, and I'd rather spend it with you, if that's okay." We spent the day in my tiny apartment watching Christmas movies and eating Chinese food because I was craving lo mein. It was simple and perfect and everything I'd never let myself want. "I got you something," Julian said as evening fell. "Julian, you've already given me so much. Just open it." Inside the box was a key. "What's this?" "A new apartment," Julian said. "Bigger, safer neighborhood, closer to the office. 2 bedrooms, so the baby can have her own room. The lease is already paid for the year." I stared at the key, my emotions a tangle I couldn't sort through. I can't accept this." "Emma, I can't keep taking from you, don't you see? Every time you give me something, every time you solve one of my problems, it makes me feel more indebted to you. And I can't build a relationship on debt." "This isn't about debt," Julian said, his voice rising slightly. "This is about me caring about you and wanting you to be safe. Then care about me without trying to fix everything." I stood up, pacing the small space. "Julian, I know you mean well. I know you're trying to help. But I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I need to know that I can take care of my daughter without a billionaire swooping in to save us." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need space." The words hurt coming out.
I need to figure out who I am when I'm not dependent on you. Julian's face went very still. You want me to leave? I want you to let me breathe, I said, tears streaming down my face. I want to know if what I feel for you is real or if it's just gratitude because you saved me when I was drowning. I want to know if you see me as a person or a project. You're not a project. Then prove it, I said. Give me space. Let me figure this out on my own. And if what we have is real, it'll still be there when I'm ready. Julian stood up slowly. He looked at the key in my hand, then at me. Okay, he said quietly. If that's what you need. He walked to the door, and I thought he'd leave without another word. But he turned back, his hand on the doorknob. Emma, I know you're scared. I know trusting someone goes against every survival instinct you've developed, but I'm not going to give up on you. On us. Take all the space you need. I'll be here when you're ready. After he left, I collapsed on my bed and sobbed. Because he was right. I was scared. Scared of depending on someone who might leave. Scared of believing in something good only to have it ripped away. Scared that if I let myself love Julian, I'd lose myself in the process. But as I lay there, feeling my daughter move inside me, I realized something else. I was more scared of losing him than I was of taking the risk. And that changed everything. January came with snow and silence. I threw myself into work, preparing for my daughter's arrival. I'd taken Julian's advice about one thing. I'd moved into the new apartment. Not because I felt obligated, but because I needed to think about her safety more than my pride. The apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, big windows, a nursery that I slowly filled with the supplies Julian and I had picked out together. Every time I walked into that room, I thought of him. But I didn't call. Melissa noticed, of course. You and Julian have been avoiding each other, she said one afternoon, cornering me by the coffee machine. We're just busy. Emma. Melissa gave me a knowing look. I've worked with Julian for 7 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. And I've definitely never seen him look as miserable as he has for the past month. I needed space to think. And? What did you figure out? I traced the rim of my coffee cup. That I'm an idiot. That I pushed away the best thing that's ever happened to me because I was too scared to believe it was real. So fix it, Melissa said simply. What if it's too late? What if he's moved on? Melissa laughed. Trust me, he hasn't moved on. But I was still too scared to reach out. What if I'd hurt him too badly? What if he'd realized during our time apart that I was right, that we made no sense together? The answer came on a Tuesday in mid-February. I was in a client meeting when I felt it. A sharp pain in my abdomen that took my breath away. Emma? One of my coworkers leaned forward. Are you okay? I'm fine, I managed. Just Braxton Hicks, probably. Another pain, sharper this time. I gripped the edge of the table. I think we need to get you to a hospital, Melissa said, her voice calm but firm. Everything after that was a blur. Someone called an ambulance. I was loaded onto a stretcher, trying not to panic because I was only 32 weeks along. Too early, way too early. In the emergency room, a doctor explained I was in preterm labor. They were going to try to stop it, give the baby's lungs more time to develop. Is there anyone we can call? The nurse asked. I gave them my emergency contact, the only person I'd listed. Julian. He burst into my hospital room 20 minutes later, still in his suit, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Emma, he was at my bedside immediately, taking my hand. What happened? Are you okay? Is the baby? They stopped the contractions, but it was close. Julian, I'm not ready. She's not ready. Shh, it's okay. You're both going to be okay. How did you get here so fast? I was in a board meeting. The moment I got the call, I left. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Emma, I need you to know something. That space you asked for, I gave it to you. But it didn't change anything. Not for me. I'm still here. I'm always going to be here. I couldn't stop crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I pushed you away because I was scared, and then I was too proud to admit I was wrong, and you weren't wrong, Julian interrupted gently. You needed to know you could stand on your own, and you did. You've been killing it at work. You set up a whole nursery by yourself. You've been going to appointments and classes and doing everything right. You proved you didn't need me. But I want you. I don't need you to save me. I just want you to be there. Is that okay? Julian leaned forward, his forehead resting against mine. Emma, that's all I've ever wanted. To just be there. To be part of your life. Yours and your daughter's, if you'll let me. She needs a name, I said suddenly. What? The baby. I've been calling her the baby this whole time because I was too scared to make her real. But she's real. She's so real, Julian, and I can't keep hiding from that. What do you want to name her? I thought about my father, about the letter that had brought Julian into my life, about second chances and new beginnings. Hope, I said. Her name is Hope. Julian's eyes were shining. That's perfect. They kept me in the hospital for 3 days of observation. Julian barely left my side. He worked from his laptop in the chair next to my bed, slept in uncomfortable positions, brought me decent food when I couldn't stomach the hospital meals. On the 3rd day, Victoria showed up. I knew the moment she walked in that it wasn't a social visit. She was immaculate as always, in a designer suit and heels that probably cost more than my rent. Victoria, Julian said, standing up, this isn't a good time. I can see that. Victoria's eyes swept over me in the hospital bed, then back to Julian. Can we talk? Outside? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Emma. Victoria's smile was sharp. Fine. The board is concerned about your involvement with an employee. There are liability issues, HR issues, and frankly, it's affecting your judgment. My judgment is fine, Julian said coldly. Is it? You walked out of a critical board meeting because your marketing assistant went into labor. Her name is Emma, and she's more than a marketing assistant. He paused, looking at me. She's what? Victoria pressed. She's the person I love, Julian said simply. I was in a client meeting when I felt it, a sharp pain in my abdomen that took my breath away. Emma? One of my coworkers leaned forward. Are you okay? I'm fine, I managed. Just Braxton Hicks, probably. Another pain, sharper this time. I gripped the edge of the cable. I think we need to get you to a hospital, Melissa said, her voice calm but firm. Everything after that was a blur. Someone called an ambulance. I was loaded onto a stretcher, trying not to panic because I was only 32 weeks along. Too early. Way too early. In the emergency room, a doctor explained I was in preterm labor. They were going to try to stop it, give the baby's lungs more time to develop. Is there anyone we can call? The nurse asked. I gave them my emergency contact, the only person I'd listed, Julian. He burst into my hospital room 20 minutes later, still in his suit, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Emma! He was at my bedside immediately, taking my hand. What happened? Are you okay? Is the baby? They stopped the contractions, but it was close. Julian, I'm not ready. She's not ready. The room went completely silent. Victoria recovered first. Well, that's certainly going to complicate things. I don't care, Julian said. Victoria, I know you've never understood why I ended things between us. The truth is, I was trying to fit into a life that never felt like mine. With Emma, I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. And I'm not giving that up. Not for the board, not for optics, not for anyone. You're making a mistake, Victoria said. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Julian's voice was firm. Now, I think you should go. Victoria looked at me one more time, and I saw something flicker in her expression. Not anger, exactly. Maybe respect? Good luck, she said. You're going to need it. After she left, I stared at Julian. You love me? He sat back down, taking my hand. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, huh? Probably, I agreed, laughing through tears. Julian, I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to say it. We're both scared. That's okay. We can be scared together. They released me from the hospital with strict orders to take it easy. No stress, lots of rest, modified work schedule. Julian drove me home to my new apartment, helped me up the stairs even though I insisted I could walk, and then surprised me by pulling out a bag. What's this? Clothes, toothbrush, laptop. He set the bag down. If it's okay with you, I'd like to stay, at least until the baby comes. I know we're taking things slow, but I want to be here, to help, to make sure you're no overdoing it. I should have said no, should have insisted I could handle it alone. Instead, I said, the couch is pretty uncomfortable. Julian smiled. I've slept in worse places. I wasn't suggesting the couch. His eyebrows rose. Emma? I'm not asking you to sleep with me, I said quickly, my face burning. I'm just saying the bed is big enough for two, and I sleep better when you're around. So if you're staying, you might as well be comfortable. That night, we lay in bed together, careful not to touch, both wide awake. This is weird, I said into the darkness. Yeah, Julian agreed. Good weird, though. Definitely good weird. I rolled onto my side, facing him. In the dim light from the window, I could just make out his profile. Julian? Yeah? Thank you for everything. For showing up, for staying, for loving me even when I was too stubborn to let you. He turned to face me. Emma, you never have to thank me for that. Loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and rested his hand on my stomach. Hope kicked against his palm. She likes you, I whispered. I like her too. Both of you. So much. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Julian worked from my apartment, taking meetings from the dining room table while I rested on the couch. We cooked dinner together, watched movies, talked about everything and nothing. He came to every doctor's appointment, took notes on what to expect during labor, read parenting books, and asked questions that made me fall in love with him more every day. You know, you don't have to do all this, I said one evening. We were assembling the crib together, and Julian was deeply focused on the instruction manual. I know. I want to. But she's not... you know she's not yours, right? Biologically?
Julian set down the screwdriver and looked at me. Emma, biology doesn't make a family. Love does. Showing up does. And if you'll let me, I want to be there for every moment. First steps, first words, first day of school. All of it. You really mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. Hope decided to make her appearance 3 weeks early, on a sunny March morning. My water broke while I was eating breakfast. Julian went into what I can only describe as controlled panic mode. Grabbing the hospital bag, helping me to the car, calling the hospital to let them know we were coming. Breathe, I reminded him as we hit traffic. I am breathing. You look like you're going to pass out. I'm fine. But his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Labor was long, painful, exhausting. But Julian never left my side. He held my hand through every contraction, whispered encouragement when I wanted to give up, and when the nurse finally said one more push, he was crying as hard as I was. Hope came into the world at 3:47 p.m., screaming her tiny lungs out. She's perfect, the doctor said, placing her on my chest. I looked down at the tiny, angry, beautiful creature in my arms and felt my entire world shift. Hi, baby girl, I whispered. I'm your mom, and this. I looked at Julian, who was staring at Hope with wonder written all over his face. This is Julian. He's going to love you so much. Can I hold her? Julian asked, his voice rough with emotion. I transferred Hope carefully into his arms, and watching him with her, so gentle and amazed, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. This man, who could have walked away 100 times, who owed me nothing, was looking at my daughter like she hung the moon. "Hi, Hope," Julian said softly. "I'm so glad you're here. Your mom and I have been waiting for you." That night, after the visitors had left and Hope was sleeping in the bassinet next to my bed, Julian sat on the edge of my hospital bed. "He has something to ask you." "Okay." He pulled out a small box, and my heart stopped. "I know this is crazy. I know we've only known each other for 6 months. I know there are 1,000 logical reasons to wait, but Emma, I don't want to wait. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to help you with 2 a.m. feedings and diaper changes and everything that comes with being a parent. I want to be your partner in everything." He opened the box, and inside was a simple, elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" I was crying again, couldn't seem to stop. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Julian slipped the ring on my finger, and then he kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "I love you too." Hope chose that moment to wake up, her tiny cry filling the room. Julian pulled back with a laugh. "I think someone wants attention." "Welcome to parenthood," I said, smiling through my tears. He picked up Hope, cradling her with a confidence that surprised me. "I can't wait," he said. And watching them together, my daughter and the man who'd chosen to love us both, I finally believed in happy endings. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were in it together. And that was more than enough. 6 months later, the wedding was small, just close friends, Melissa and a few coworkers, and Hope in a tiny white dress that made her look like an angel. I walked down the makeshift aisle in our apartment, the same apartment Julian had given me when I needed space, now filled with photos of the 3 of us. "You look beautiful," Julian said when I reached him, his eyes shining. "You're not so bad yourself." We said our vows with Hope sleeping in Melissa's arms, and when the officiant pronounced us married, Julian kissed me like I was the most precious thing in his world, because to him, I was. That night, after the small celebration ended and Hope was asleep in her crib, Julian and I stood at the window looking out at the city lights. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked, "giving up the perfect billionaire bachelor life for this?" Julian wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Emma, I didn't give up anything. I found everything. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Not because our story was perfect, but because it was real. And real was so much better than perfect ever could be."